Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I'll be brief in this. My opposition, in fact, as an Iraq War veteran, is that I certainly agree with supporting the formation of Sunni Arab militias as we had done during the surge. I agree with supporting the Kurds, but I simply cannot agree with giving further financial support directly to the government of Iraq. And I think, given the fact that, quite frankly, they're an oil-rich nation, I think Congressional Research Service had their October figures down in terms of oil revenue at $6.2 billion to the government. So I just think that, and the recent story out there in terms of corruption in the military had reported that 50,000 Iraqi soldiers that don't really exist but were on the payroll just as ghost soldiers as a function of corruption. So I think that this is a terrible mistake. This was never debated. This issue was never debated in the House Armed Services Committee during the National Defense Authorization Act debate. It was interjected by the administration very recently and attached to this bill. And I think in the manner that this is proceeding, as a de facto conference committee report in the House and Senate, I think it's inappropriate. And I think this is offensive to the taxpayers of America to be putting more resources into a country that clearly has the ability, maybe not the will, but the ability to support its own military. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that's the amendment.
Mr. Coffman, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would like to say to you that this, not in defense of anyone,
sure,
but in defense of this member, as chairman of the committee with wide-ranging responsibilities, as all members
sure
have up here, that I have been disappointed in the what I believe is a collaboration between all the entities, meaning the White House, meaning the State Department, meaning the Pentagon on this issue, and probably in defense of what led us up to today. I was hopeful that we would have an answer back that was straightforward from the administration about a clear pathway, and it reinforces to me once again how difficult things are if people don't accept the real offer that we gave them last time as we were reprogramming money. And I want to thank you for coming up here. You've been before you came here, several other members, very thoughtful members, came and said very similar things to what you said, that the debate is important, that hearing and us concluding where we should be is very important, and I want to thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You'll need to stick around for a minute because we have other committee members that, because when you agree to be a witness, you
sure
have to agree to take their questions too. I would defer, come to the gentleman from Oklahoma and ask if he would wish to be recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just take a second. I just want to thank my friend, who's a very thoughtful, very able member, but has a special credibility because of your exceptional service to our country. When you talk about these events, the reality is you not only bring the expertise of the committee, but you bring a lifetime of service and commitment to the United States of America. So I thank my friend very, very much for taking the time, and much more profoundly for all he's done for all of us for many, many, many years.
Thank you, Mr. Cole.
I'd consider that very favorable, what he just said. Good. Mrs. Slaughter?
I would be happy to vote for your amendment here and on the floor. I can't imagine even thinking about rearming people who, do you have any idea how many billions of dollars worth of American equipment they threw away that were picked up by ISIS and are now shooting at everybody else? Any idea of that kind of money?
No, I did.
Well, I don't want to see it again. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Gentleman yields back time. The gentleman from Georgia does not seek time. The gentleman from Massachusetts recognized.
I too want to say that I appreciate you being here, and I agree with your amendment. I hope we can vote on it in committee and on the floor. And you know, I'm tired of the Iraqi government treating the United States people like we're cheap dates. I mean, basically, they just ask for money. I mean, and I read that article as well, that all these ghost soldiers, the corruption. I mean, I can't get money for a bridge in my district, but, you know, we can pay for ghost soldiers in Iraq, and it just, I think people are getting sick and tired of it, and that's why we need a debate on the floor, and that's why we ought to be voting on these things. And we can blame the administration, we can blame the State Department and the Defense Department and everybody else we want, but at the end of the day, it is our constitutional responsibility to debate these issues and to have a say on it. And we have neglected that responsibility now for several months. And you know, we could fix this here and now. We could have this debate, and I hope that we do. But I thank the gentleman for bringing this to our attention.
Gentleman yields back his time. Does any other Republican member, seeing none?
Mr. Chairman?
Judge, you're now recognized.
Very briefly, Mr. Coffman, thank you. Let me ask you, the $6.2 billion figure in oil revenue that you spoke about, over what period of time was that $6.2 billion?
Mr. Hastings, that's in a single month, the month of October of this year.
That's the point that I wanted to make, and then I just wanted to share with you a vignette from my history, beginning with the Iraq War. After we had spent so much money there, I offered legislation to have the Iraqi government repay us just for construction.
Right.
I had gone to Iraq with then Chairman David Dreyer, and I had seen all sorts of things where all the copper was ripped out of buildings and all sorts of things that we had paid for. So I thought it wasn't robbery to ask their government to pay us out of their oil revenue just for construction, not for overall military operation. The parliamentarian at that time informed me that I could not bring that legislation for the reason that you cannot cause an indebtedness of a sovereign. I still find it mystifying, but I just want you to know that previous to your coming here, someone else has been on that because they've had multi-billions of revenue, and there's no excuse for us to give them another dime.
I agree.
I see no one else has a question, but I have one.
Sure.
And I only mean this in fairness. I'll look at Mr. McGovern when I say this. Is this being debated at all in the United States Senate? Is it a debate? Is the debate taking place? I'm aware of this over here. I'm aware of this from my colleagues. I'm aware of this from my friends. I'm aware of this from people who I agree with. I'm aware of it from people I disagree with. Is this taking place in the United States Senate? I don't get as much time to pay attention to them. Is this a House-side debate? I would.
Yeah, quite frankly, it should be both sides debate.
Well, I
and
agree.
you know, and as much as I'm critical of Speaker Boehner, I'm critical of Harry Reid too. I mean, we ought to be. I don't care if it's not Democrat or Republican. We ought to be doing our job. That's all. And neither chamber is doing their job when it comes to this war.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, did gentlemen? Yeah, no, good.
Since I have no life here after hours, watching the Senate debate last night.
Yes, sir.
You know how they get on the floor, just like we have our 5 minutes or 1 minute. There was a couple members that got up and spoke to this particular issue on the Democratic side that spoke to it. But I've not heard any actual debate other than, like I said, 1 minute or 5 minute speech.
You know, I think we find ourselves lots of times where we get in our own little areas, like Doc Hastings could be here, and he would be a guy that's into natural resources. We could find somebody here that's an appropriator. We could find someone here that's armed services, and how they get into their debate and their talk. I know I'm looking at a couple members of the Armed Services Committee. Most members are into their own content, and we hear things, and I have very strong feelings also about my vote and how I think it should not have extended this far also. I just did not know if there were the other body was doing this also. Great. Mike, thank you. Congressman Coffman,
Thank you, Mr.
very
Chairman.
much. I appreciate you taking time to be here. This